Alright, at the gas station again. So, thought I would pick up where I left off into Enoch. Pretty sure it was chapter 17, so I'll try to read this. See how far I get. I probably won't read as much tonight. Maybe I will, I don't know. Alright. Sorry. In the midst of the heavens, I saw armed soldiers serving the Lord, with drums and organs, with constant voice, with sweet and unceasing voice, and various singing, which it is impossible to describe, and which astonishes every mind. So wonderful and marvelous is the singing of those angels, and I was delighted listening to it. The men took me onto the fifth heaven and placed me. And there I saw many and countless soldiers called Grigori, of human appearance, and their size was greater than that of great giants, and their faces withered, and the silence of their mouths perpetual, and there was no service on the fifth heaven. And I said to the men who were with me, why are they so very withered, and their faces melancholy, and their mouths silent, and why is there no service in this heaven? And they said to me, these are the Grigori, who with their prince Satan, I guess it says Satanal in parentheses Satan, who with these are the Grigori, who with their prince Satanal rejected the Lord of light. After them are those who are held in great darkness in the second heaven, and 3 of them went down to the earth from the Lord's throne to the place of Hermon, and broke through their vows on the shoulder of the hill Hermon, and saw the daughters of men, how good they are. And they took themselves wives, and fouled the earth with their deeds, who broke the law in mixing with the women. Giants are born, and amazingly large men with great hatred. All right, there's a note back here. It says the Greek transliteration egregori, I don't know if that's egregori, are the Watchers, a group of fallen angels who mated with mortal women and produced the Nephilim mentioned in the book of Jubilees, 1 Enoch and Genesis 6:4. All right, and then there was another note, on this page. The hill of Hermon could be Mount Hermon, which is mentioned over a dozen times in the Bible. All right. Giants are born, and amazingly large men with great hatred. And therefore God judged them with great judgment, and they weep for their brethren, and they will be punished on the Lord's great day. And I said to the Grigori, I saw your brethren and their works and their great torments, and I prayed for them, but the Lord has condemned them to be under earth until this heaven and this earth shall end forever. And I said, why do you stand there, brethren, and do not serve before the Lord's face, and have not put your services before the Lord's face? You could anger your Lord completely. And they listened to my advice, and spoke to the 4 ranks in heaven. As I stood with those 2 men, 4 trumpets sounded together with a loud voice, and the Grigori broke into song with one voice, and their voice went up before the Lord pitifully and touchingly. From there, those men took me and lifted me up on the 6th heaven, and there I saw 7 bands of angels, very bright and very glorious, and their faces shining more than the sun shining, glistening. And there is no difference in their faces or behavior or manner of dress. And these make the orders and learn the goings of the stars, and the alteration of the moon, or the revolution of the sun, and the good administration of the world. And when they see evil doings, they make commandments and instruction, and make sweet and loud singing, and all songs of praise. These are the archangels who are above angels, and they measure all life in heaven and on earth. And the angels who are over seasons and years, the angels who are over seasons and years, the angels who are over rivers and sea, and who are over the fruits of the earth, and the angels who are over every grass, giving food to every and all living things, and the angels who write down all the souls of men, and all their deeds, and their lives before the Lord's face. In their midst are 6 phoenixes, and 6 cherubim, and six winged ones, continually singing with one voice, and it is not possible to describe their singing, and they rejoice before the Lord at his footstool. And those 2 men lifted me up from there on to the 7th heaven, and I saw there a very great light, and fiery troops, and great archangels, incorporeal forces and dominions, orders and governments, cherubim and seraphim, thrones and many-eyed thrones and many-eyed ones, 9 regiments, the Ionite stations of light, and I became afraid and began to tremble with great terror, and those men took me and led me after them and said to me, "Have courage, Enoch, do not fear," and showed me the Lord from afar, sitting on his very high throne. For what is there on the 10th heaven, since the Lord dwells there? On the 10th heaven is God. In the Hebrew tongue he is called Aravat. Note, the meaning of Ionite is not clear. However, it may be derived from the transliteration of the name John. John means the Lord is gracious. The meaning of Aravat is equally unclear, but seems to mean Father of creation. Each level of heaven represents or demonstrates a personality or part of the Godhead. One of the highest demonstrations of God's power and divinity is the power of creation. It is found in the 10th level of heaven. Okay, back to the text. And all the heavenly soldiers would come and stand on the 10 steps according to their rank, and would bow down to the Lord, and would then return to their places in joy and bliss, singing songs in the unlimited light with soft and gentle voices, gloriously serving him. Note, the strong and fierce soldiers sing with soft, gentle voices, bowing and serving in bliss. Okay, not sure why that verse is there. It just kind of repeated what was said, I guess. All right, chapter 21. And the cherubim and seraphim standing around the throne, and the 6-winged and many-eyed ones do not depart, standing before the Lord's face, doing his will, and cover his whole throne, singing with gentle voice before the Lord's face, Holy, 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 Lord, ruler of Sabaoth. Heavens and earth are full of your glory. When I saw these things, the men said to me, Enoch, thus far we were commanded to journey with you. And those men went away from me, and after that I did not see them. And I remained alone at the end of the 7th heaven, and became afraid, and fell on my face, and said to myself, Woe is me, what has befallen me? And the Lord sent one of his glorious ones, the archangel Gabriel, and he said to me, Have courage, Enoch, do not fear. Arise before the Lord's face into eternity. Arise and come with me. And I answered him, and said within myself, My Lord, my soul has departed from me due the terror and trembling. And I called to the men who led me up to this place. I relied on them, and it is with them that I can go before the Lord's face. It says, note, when speaking to God, Enoch said within himself. He did not have to speak aloud. Okay, whatever. And Gabriel lifted me up like a leaf caught up by the wind, and he placed me before the Lord's face. And I saw the 8th heaven, which is called in the Hebrew tongue Mozelot. It's got in parentheses zodiac. It's M-U-Z-A-L-O-T-H. Mozelot, zodiac. I don't know, the changer of the seasons, of drought and of wet, and of the 12 constellations of the circle of the firmament, which are above the 7th heaven. And I saw the 9th heaven, which is called in Hebrew Kuchavim, I guess, Kuhavim, where are the heavenly homes of the 12 constellations of the circle of the firmament. On the 10th heaven, which is called Eravot, I saw the appearance of the Lord's face, like iron made to glow in fire, and it shone forth and cast out, emitting sparks, and it burned. It says, note, one possible meaning of Eravot is 3 times holy, or holy, holy, holy. In a moment of eternity I saw the Lord's face, but the Lord's face is indescribable, marvelous, and very amazing, and very, very terrible. And who am I to tell of the Lord's unspeakable being, and of his very wonderful face? I cannot tell the amount of his instructions and the variety of voices. The Lord's throne is very great and not made with hands, and I cannot tell the number of those standing around him. There were troops of cherubim and seraphim, and they sang unceasingly. I cannot tell of his unchanging beauty. Who shall tell of the unpronounceable greatness of his glory? And I fell prone and bowed down to the Lord, and the Lord with his lips said to me, Have courage, Enoch, do not fear. Arise and stand before my face into eternity. And then it's got in parentheses, stand before my face eternally, stand before my eternal face. Enoch, note, there's a note, Enoch is out and above time-space. Eternity is now, and he can feel the timelessness of where he is. The language struggles to convey this fact. Okay. And the archangel Michael lifted me up and led me to the Lord's face. And the Lord said to his servants, testing them, "Let Enoch stand before my face into eternity." And the glorious ones bowed down to the Lord and said, "Let Enoch go according to your word." And the Lord said to Michael, "Go and take Enoch and remove his earthly garments and anoint him with my sweet ointment and put him into the garments of my glory." And Michael did as the Lord told him, and he anointed me and dressed me. And the appearance of that ointment is more than the great light, and his ointment is like sweet dew, and it smelled mild, shining like the sun's ray. And I looked at myself, and I was transformed into one of his glorious ones. It says, note, the number symbolism of 10 is that of new starts at a higher level, new beginnings, a new creation. And the Lord summoned one of his archangels. I don't even know where did it mention 10? Did I miss that? I probably did. I don't know. In the 10th heaven? I don't know. And the Lord summoned one of his archangels, whose name was Pravuel, whose knowledge was quicker in wisdom than the other archangels, who wrote all the deeds of the Lord. And the Lord said to Pravuel, I don't know how to say it, Pravuil. And the Lord said to Pravuel, "Bring out the books from my storehouses and a reed of quick writing, and give it to Enoch, and deliver to him the best and comforting books out of your hand." And then this says, note, Enoch is now an angel. He now has access to the heavenly records and the understanding to use the knowledge. A reed was used in writing, much like a quill was used. So I don't know about these notes. They seem like just the author's commentary. So I don't know where he says that he's an angel. He's definitely dressed like an angel, but so are the priests in the Bible. So I don't know. That feels like a little bit of an assumption, but maybe not. Anyway, I don't think it said he was transformed into an angel. I think that happens in the third Enoch, but no, I don't know if it happens in this one. Oh no, it does say I was transformed into one of his glorious ones, but that was after he's dressed up. Okay, I don't know. Sorry, I digress. And he was explaining to me all the works of heaven, earth, and sea, and all the elements, their passages and goings, and the sounding of the thunders, the sun and moon, the progression and changes of the stars, the seasons, years, days, and hours, as well as the risings of the wind, the numbers of the angels, and the formation of their songs, and all human things, the tongue and every human song and life, the commandments, instructions, and sweet voice singings, and all things that are fitting to learn. And Pravuel told me, "All things that I have told you, we have written. Sit and write all the souls of mankind. However many of them are born, and the places were prepared for them in eternity." And he said, "All souls are prepared for eternity before the formation of the world. And for both 30 days and 30 nights I wrote out all things exactly, and wrote 366 books." It says, note, if all things were created in 6 days, then the souls of all people were created at that time. In Jewish mythology, the place that the souls were housed until birth was called the Guf, G-U-F, G-U-P-H? I don't know. Each soul was created for a certain place, time, and destiny. According to one version of the myth, when the Guf, then it's got in parentheses, Gup, G-U-P? I don't know. When the goof is emptied of souls, time ceases. In another version, when the last soul dies and returns to God, time will end. Enoch wrote 366 books in a 720-hour period containing information on all things, including all souls who are prepared for eternity before the formation of the world. That's end of the note. All right, chapter 24. And the Lord summoned me and said to me, "Enoch, sit down on my left with Gabriel." And I bowed down to the Lord, and the Lord spoke to me, "Enoch, beloved, all that you see, all things that are standing finished. I tell you, even before the very beginning, I created all things from non-being. I created the visible, physical things from the invisible, spiritual. Hear, Enoch, and take in my words, for I have not told my angels my secret, and I have not told them their rise, nor my endless realm. Nor have they understood my creating, which I tell you today. For before all things were visible, I alone used to go about in the invisible, spiritual things, like the sun from the east to the west, and from the west to the east. But even the sun has peace in itself, while I found no peace, because I was creating all things, and I conceived the thought of placing foundations and of creating the visible, physical creation. I don't know. Okay, I'll try to read through. This is a long note. Note, overview of the heavens. All right, first heaven. Enoch arrives on angels' wings. There are storehouses of snow and dew. Second heaven. Enoch finds a group of fallen angels. There is darkness and torture. Third heaven. There are sweet flowers, trees, and fruit. Fourth heaven. There are soldiers, heaven's army, and the progression of sun and moon. Fifth heaven. The leaders of the fallen angels, the Grigori, a company of them went down and had intercourse with the daughters of men, yielding giants who became the source of enmity on earth. Sixth heaven, 7 bands of angels and the ordering of the stars. Seventh heaven shows something unusual happening to Enoch when Gabriel puts Enoch in front of the throne of the Lord. The 8th, 9th, and 10th heavens, thought to be later additions and not part of the original text. Okay, this is the 8th heaven, known in Hebrew as Moselot or Zodiac. The 9th heaven, known in Hebrew as Kuchavim, I don't know, or heavenly bodies or stars. The 10th heaven, Eravot, God's face, was revealed like that of iron made to glow in fire. Enoch sees the appearance of the Lord's face, but calls it indescribable. Pravuil, the archangel, is commanded to write down the secret information about astronomy, climate, and language and give it over to Enoch. In the other Enochian writings, the same angel, also spelled Penamue, is criticized for teaching humans to write. Yeah, remember that. Okay, chapter 25. I commanded in the very lowest parts, the physical things, should I come down from the invisible, spiritual, and Adoil came down very great, and I beheld him, and he had a belly of great light. And I said to him, become undone, Adoil. It's Adoil, I guess that's how you say it, Adoil. Become undone, Adoil, and let the visible, physical universe come out of you. And he came undone, and a great light came out, and I was in the midst of the great light, and there is born light from light. There came forth a great age, eon, space of time, and showed all creation, which I had thought to create. And I saw that it was good. And I placed for myself a throne, and took my seat on it, and said to the light, go up higher from here, and station yourself high above the throne, and be a foundation to the highest things. And above the light there is nothing else. And then I rose up and looked up from my throne. All right, this is another note. There's lots of notes in here. I just don't know if I should skip them or not. This is a long one again. Beginning with chapters 25 and 26, the book of 2 Enoch takes a rather Gnostic diversion. The Gnostics were a Christian sect that flourished around the 3rd century AD. The Gnostic view of the Godhead borrowed heavily from the creation saga preached by Plato. The story of Adoil and the emanation of pure light from God, which brings about creation of the physical world, is similar to other Gnostic works. Gnosticism teaches that in the beginning a supreme being called the Father, the divine all, the origin, the supreme God, and or the fullness, emanated the element of existence, both visible and invisible. His intent was not to create, but just as light emanates from a flame, so did creation shine forth from God. This manifested the primal element needed for creation. This was the creation of Barbelo, who was the thought of God. The Father's thought performed a deed, and she was created from it. It is she who had appeared before him in the shinings of his light. This is the first power which was before all of them, and which was created from his mind. She is the thought of all, and her light shines like his light. It is the perfect power which is the visage of the invisible. She is the pure, undefiled spirit who is perfect. She is the first power. Adoil has that place in this myth. It could be said that Barbelo was the creative emanation and, like the divine all, is both male and female. It was the agreement of Barbelo and the divine all, representing the union of male and female, that created the Christ spirit and all the aeons. In some renderings, the word aeon is used to designate an ethereal realm or kingdom. In other versions, aeon indicates the ruler of the realm. The aeons of a moth. Trying to start my book. The aeons of this world are merely reflections of the aeons of the eternal realm. The reflection is always inferior to real. In several Gnostic cosmologies, the living world is under the control of entities called aeons, of which Sophia is head. This means the aeons influence or control the soul, life force, intelligence, thought, and mind. Control of the mechanical or inorganic world is given to the archons. The archons were created by Sophia. Sophia, probably out of pride, this is interesting. Sophia, probably out of pride, tried to emulate the creative force of God by creating an image of herself, meaning that she wanted to produce an offspring without either consort or the approval of her father, God. As an aeon, she did not have the power to do so, but wasn't perfect like the Great Spirit or like the other two perfect aeons, Barbelo and the Autogenes. Nevertheless, in her arrogance, she attempted to create and failed. She was horrified when she saw her creation, imperfect brutish creature with a lion-faced serpent with eyes of fire, whom she called Yaldabaoth. Sophia cast her offspring out of Plamora, heaven, and hid her child within a thick cloud from the other aeons because of her embarrassment and shame. Yaldabaoth was the first of the Archon, and he stole his mother's power so that she wasn't able to escape from the cloud. Despite gaining Sophia's aeonic power, he was weak but prideful, ambitious, and power-hungry. Since the Archons, including Yaldabaoth, were adronymous beings, Yaldabaoth fathered 12 archons, giving each a bit of his power. They were named Athot, Harmos, Kalila Ombri, Yabel, Adoneo, or Sabaoth. So I guess that's another way of saying it. I don't know. Cain, Abel, Abrasine, Yobel, Armopale, I don't know how to say it, Melcier, Adoian, and Belias. 7 archons would rule 7 heavens and 5 in the abyss, which Yaldabaoth and the archons created. Each archon would rule a heaven or the abyss and created 365 angels to help them. The archons rule the physical aspects of systems, regulation, limits, and order in the world. Both the ineptitude and cruelty of the archons are reflected in the chaos and pain of the material realm. Oh, goodness. See the book, The Gnostic Scriptures by Joseph Lumpkin, published by Fifth Estate. You know, I wonder if that's the other one I was reading that had the Gospel of Thomas in it. I don't remember. The author was on that one. All right, almost there. Although the above may be a digression from the text of 2 Enoch, it adds insight into the time frame and origins of this production. Gnostic influences were felt from the late century to the early 4th century AD. If the writer of this section of 2 Enoch was exposed to the Gnostic sect, it would conclusively make 2 Enoch a text with Christian influences. End of note. All right, that was a long one. I don't know. Should I keep going? Let's see. Where am I at? Oh. I will go up to chapter 30. Sure, maybe, or maybe chapter 29. I'll at least do a little bit more. All right, chapter 26. And I summoned the very lowest a second time, and I said, "Let Arcus come forth hard." And he came forth hard from the invisible, spiritual. And Arcus came forth hard, heavy, and very red. And I said, "Be opened, Arcus, and let there be born from you." And he came apart, and an age came forth, very great and very dark, bearing the creation of all lower things. And I saw that it was good, and said to him, "Go down below, and make yourself solid, and be a foundation for the lower things." And it happened, and he went down and stationed himself, and became the foundation for the lower things. And below the darkness there was nothing else. Note: hard and heavy could be terms for gravid or pregnant, with birth being imminent. Arcus could equate to the archons. I don't know. I have no idea what that means. Okay. Chapter 27. And I commanded that there should be taken from light and darkness, and I said, "Be thick." and it became thick, and I spread it out with the light. And it became water, and I spread it out over the darkness below the light. And I made firm the waters, that is to say, the bottomless abyss. And I made foundation of light around the water, and created 7 circles from inside. And I made the water look like crystal, wet and dry, so it was like glass. And the circles were around the waters and other elements, and I showed each one of them its path. And the 7 stars, each one of them in its heaven, and they go the correct way. And I saw that it was good. And I made separations between light and darkness in the midst of the water here and there. And I said to the light that it should be day, and to the darkness that it should be night. And there was evening and there was morning on the first day. Note, the foundation of light around the water is like crystal, is likely a reference to sky. One belief at the time of writing was that the sky was an expanse of water like an endless sea. Yeah, that I would think that would be correct, right? I mean, clouds are up there. All right, chapter 28. And then I made firm the heavenly circle, and I made that the lower water, which is under heaven, collect itself together into one whole piece, and that the chaos become dry. And it became so. Out of the waters I created hard and large rock, and from that rock I piled up the dry land. And the dry land I called earth, and the middle of the place I called the abyss, or the bottomless. And I collected the sea in one place, and bound it together with a yoke. Okay, I might keep reading through the creation of man, because I remember I really like that part. Or I might just read up to it. I don't know. All right. And I said to the sea, behold, I give you eternal limits, and you shall not break loose from your integral parts. Thus I made the firmament hold together. This day I called the first created Sunday. This I called the first day of creation. And for all the heavenly soldiers I made them the image and the essence of fire. And my eye looked at the very hard, firm rock, and from the gleam of my eye the lightning received its wonderful nature, which is both fire and water and fire. And one does not put out the other, nor does the one dry up the other. Therefore the lightning is brighter than the sun, softer than water, and firmer than hard rock. Note, if the sky is made of water and lightning, which is fire, issues from the sky, then water and fire must exist together in a heavenly form. All right. And from the rock I cut off a great fire, and from the fire I created the order of the incorporeal, spiritual / non-physical, 10 troops of angels, and their weapons are fiery, and their raiment a burning flame. And I commanded that each one should stand in his order, and one from out the order of angels, having violated the command he was given, conceived an impossible thought, to place his throne higher than the clouds above the earth, so that he might become equal in rank to my power. And I threw him out from the height with his angels, and he was flying in the air continuously above the bottomless abyss. This says, note, we assume this ends the second day, although it is not mentioned. All right. Chapter 30. On the third day I commanded the earth to make and grow great fruitful trees, and hills and seeds to sow. And I planted paradise and enclosed it, and placed armed guards in the form of my flaming angels. And in this way I created renewal. Then came evening, and morning came the fourth day. On Wednesday, the fourth day, I commanded that there should be great lights in the heavenly circles. On the first uppermost circle I placed the stars Cronus, and on the second Aphrodite, and the third Aries, on the fifth Zeus, on the sixth Hermes, on the seventh Lesser the moon, and adorned it with the lesser stars. Note, the fourth heavenly circle is vacant. The Greek names for the heavenly bodies leave no doubt as to the influence of Greek words and ideas within this section of the text. And on the lower parts I placed the sun for the illumination of day, and the moon and stars for the illumination of night. And I set the sun that it should go according to each of the 12 constellations. And I appointed the succession of the months in their names and lives, their thundering, and how they mark the hours, and how they should proceed. Then evening came, and morning came of the 5th day. On Thursday the 5th day I commanded the sea that it should bring forth fishes, and feathered birds in many varieties, and all animals creeping over the earth, going forth over the earth on 4 legs, and soaring in the air, of male and female sex, every soul breathing the spirit of life. Note, verse 8 proclaims the creation of all souls breathing, inspired by the life of God. The next verse proclaims the creation of man. This day filled the gulf, and incarnation begins in the next. So I'll probably stop here. I know I would like the next part where it talks about man. Or I remember liking it. I haven't, like I said, I've only read it once years ago. And there came evening, and there came morning, the 6th day. So on the 6th day is where I'll pick up from, I guess, next time. All right.